Hi, and welcome back to Biblical Theology, Exegesis, and Hermeneutics, where meaning is always context-driven. I'm your host, John Strazicich. Okay, this is Trucker John coming to you once again, and this time we are in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, some far-off place. We're finishing up the Haazinu today. So we began here in Deuteronomy chapter 34, and the text that we're going to deal with is the last section, which is verses 34 through 43. And notice here that we're beginning in the second part of the distick, and that just goes back to Ben Buya'ah, back in verse 14, where he failed to recognize that there was something called a tristick. So ever since then, he has been off. But anyhow, so we begin here. Halohu kamus imadi, chatum beotzerotai, li nakam vishalem, le'et tamut raglam, ki karov yom edam, vechas atidot lamo, Ki yadin Yehovah amo, ve'al avadav yit necham, ki yir'e, ki atzelat yad. And notice here that Aaron ben Asher put in a chatef patak underneath the zayin here. And our modern texts, it comes with just a vocal schwa. It's just some variation, and we saw this underneath another zayin back when we were in Amos chapter 5. So there's a little variation of pronunciation from time and place throughout the eras, and so this is unique here to Aaron ben Asher in the Aleppo Codex. So we continue on. V'efes adzur v'adzuv v'amar Elohemo. Zur chasayu vo asher chelev zevachemo yochelu yishtu yain nesicham yakumu v'yat Zeruchem Yehi Alechem Sitra Re'u Ata Ki Ani Hu Ve'ein Elohim Imadi Ani Amit Va'achaye Machatzti Va'ani Erpa Ve'ein Miyadi Matzil. So we'll end there our reading, because then we go into another strophe here, and we'll pick it up a little later. Okay, so now we're going to come to our translation, and I'd much rather give our translation here on this particular page, where we can have the disticks appropriately arranged according to their natural order, and it's not going to be offset. But note down here in verse 39, we have it end. This verse 39 has two tristicks, and that is the proper way to read this. Because if you have in your text that your English version, if you just have verse 39 is two disticks. Well, just look at, you're going to have 6 prosodic words. You're going to have a 6-3. Excuse me, that's not going to happen. So you need to divide the text up here. And even the Masoretic text, just follow the Revia, the Zakev Katon, and the Atnach, and boom, there you go. You have your division of the text. And once again, you have the Revia, you have Zakev Katon, and you have the Sopasuk here. So this works out really nicely. The Masoretes understood the thought division of the text, it's a shame that that Aaron Ben or that Ben Booyah did not discern this. But remember that Aaron Ben Asher was the one who was putting in the Nikudim and the Masoretic accentuation marks. So let's go ahead with our translation. Is it not laid up with me, sealed in my treasuries? Vengeance and recompense, or you can have, vengeance and retribution belong to me. At the time their foot slips, tamut here, for the day of their calamity is near. And then we have here in the second distich here, and we have this antidote, and this is an adjective which means ready, but it's used substantively here, so it's the things ready hasten upon them. For Yahweh shall judge his people, and concerning his servants he shall have compassion, for he sees we're just going to put in here, the literal translation, for he sees that, and we'll just put in the word there, their hand is gone. I mean, that's literal, okay? So Yod is also a translation, is their power. For he sees their power is gone, and there is an end to the bond and the free. And I think that's a good translation. And there is an end to the bond and the free. And he shall say, where are their gods, the rock in which they took refuge, whose fat of their sacrifices they ate? Or, you say, who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their libations. Let them arise and let them help you, and let there be a hiding place. Let it be a hiding place for you. See now that I am he, there is no God besides me. I kill and I make alive. I smite through and I heal. And there is no one who can deliver from my hand. Okay, so we're going to come to initially making our comments upon the text. Now, a couple literary features that we should take into account. Note here, verse 34 and 35 are definitely Yahweh is speaking. Halo hu kamus imadi. Is it not treasured up or stored up with me? Sealed in my treasuries. Vengeance and retribution belong to me. Okay. Now, maybe the first key clause here one could maintain that this is Yahweh's basis clause. Ki karov yom edam, for the day of their calamity is near, and the things that are readied or prepared hasten upon them. But once we come down here to verse 36, we definitely have Moses's insertion again. We saw that last time, because definitely when we come here to verse 37, okay, vit amar, and he said, so this is introductory speech reporting formula. Now, what comes right after vit amar? Where are their gods? The rock in whom they have took refuge. Okay. So now we go to this Amar introduces here the continued Yahweh speech. So Moses was conscious here of inserting himself for making some explanatory comments upon what Yahweh had said in verses 34 and 35. And so that's important to note here, that we have a change of voice, and to understand the text as it comes to us, and how the history of the construction of the text itself. It's very important to see that this is a work between both God and his prophet Moses here. So I just wanted to bring that aspect out here in this particular unit. Okay, so let's now actually come and try to understand the text. What I've done is I have divided this particular part of the text into two strophes. So the first strophe here would go from 35 to 36, and then the second strophe would go from 37 to 39. And this is a unified, this whole speech is unified in that this is, explaining God's limited judgment upon Israel and punishment of his enemies. Now, his enemies could be whether they're domestic or, international. So that's important, and we'll see this distinction here within the text. But so let's just come back up here and note here that these particular disticks are very important to be able then to try. What you're trying to do is understand that line A, so to speak, and then we have a caesura, and then it's followed by line B here in this particular instance, and then what you want to do is compare line A with line B. So let's follow with that. Halo hu kamus emadi. Is it not? And for this hapax legomena here, kamus, this passive participle, is it not stored up with me, sealed in my treasuries? So this thought is both proleptic in that we're going to this is a rhetorical question, then that leads here then to an assertion of Yahweh, a declaration. Vengeance and shalem, retribution belong to me. And then we can say this: at the time their foot slips, or when their foot slips. That's an appropriate translation. So just looking here at the rhetorical question, these two disticks here, we have a rhetorical question, and then an assertion that follows upon it. And so the question here is somewhat proleptic in that the understanding of the question will unfold as we move forward. But it also is attached backwards as well. So it's kind of like a hinge that takes stock of what had happened before, like in our last discussion. But it also definitely is pointing forward in that it's foreshadowing more to come here concerning the things that are stored up with Yahweh and that they're sealed in his treasuries. So that's important. So to think of things that are stored up and things that are sealed. Now, you can have seals on many different items. Remember, the context prior to this was talking about wine, and wine is stored, and there are seals placed upon wine concerning their date and place of gathering, and they would all be in Yahweh's treasuries, and that imagery of the wine was definitely in terms of judgment, because it took up the venom of the serpents, but now he's going to speak a little more plainly. Vengeance and retribution belong to me. So that is the sole prerogative here of Yahweh, and so Yahweh is the one who is going to punish Israel. He would allow the nations to only go so far, but it's Yahweh is controlling the judgment of Israel. And note here the temporal clause here, at the time their foot slips. So Yahweh is going to judge them at the appropriate time, right when their foot slips. And that's because they have gone into error, and they have apostatized. And now look at we've got a series here of key clauses, that are the foundation reasoning for Yahweh's exercise of his vengeance and retribution at such a time. For the day of their calamity is near, karov. Things readied or prepared hasten upon them. So you can see here that Yahweh foresees here that their time is coming. And remember, this was all explained. That's why when we first started, looking here at the Haazinu in chapter 32, well, the preparation for that all began in chapter 31, and there, basically, this whole song came about, at the transition when God told Moses, look, you are going to die. You're not going into the promised land. So then Moses said, well, let the Lord pick out a leader for his people. And then this is where Joshua was installed, and that Joshua was called to the tent of meeting with Moses, and Yahweh came down, and this song was then written. And Joshua is a part of this song, along with Moses. So this is that's important to see. We will see this in verse. We'll look again at verse 44. That will plainly connect the narrative, all the way back to chapter 31. But here we have these three series here of basis clauses. And so this is talking about the in terms of these temporal clauses, that the day of their calamity is near. And when is it? It's at the time. It's because things are hastening upon them, and it explains here at the time their foot slips. And then we're going to definitely say Moses picks up here in verse 36, for Yahweh shall judge his people, and concerning his servants he shall have compassion. And I think that this is the correct way to interpret this, that Yadin here is judge. You'll see some of the translations are going to try to soften this, but if Yahweh's going to have compassion upon his servants when he judges his people, is that it always takes two to tango. There is an offending party, and a victim. And the victims here are Yahweh's servants, okay? So Yahweh shall judge his people, okay? That he will judge amongst the righteous and unrighteous. But upon his servants he shall have compassion. For he sees that, and Yod here, we can't say hand, we have to translate this as power. That's the nuance that it would translate into English. For he sees that, and we'd put their power is gone or has departed. And furthermore, not only is that their hand or their power is gone, but there is an end to those bound and freed. Okay, so I'm thinking this is more in terms of thinking of the servants, okay, the slaves, so that there's an end of those who are bound and free. Just like, remember at the time when Jerusalem was being sacked, that there was a point when all the leaders came to the court and made a covenant that they were going to release their servants, because it was very difficult for these slave owners to be able to house and feed them, and they had to let them go to basically fend for themselves. So this is basically meaning this is the end of society here. And note here that Yahweh waits till you're at the bottom. This is when your foot slips and then Yahweh comes in and judges you, well, you end up on your butt. And you can see here that it says their power is gone and there's an end of bond and free. So this is the end of their society at that time. It has come crashing down upon them, and Yahweh is ending this era of apostasy. Now we continue. This continues the judgment, but now the topic here is more of dealing with their idolatry. So when you look at verses 37 to 39, Yahweh's judgment here, you're going to see here that he remember, this was the whole thing back in chapter 31 where Yahweh said that they were going to turn and worship other gods. So of course all of this relates to Israel. And as last time I had mentioned that there is there's others here who want to read into all of these verses the enemy, that is not domestic enemies but international enemies. So, and I think there's a point here where it could be both, but it's definitely talking about Israel here, in verses 37 here to 39. And now Moses introduces Yahweh's speech after giving his own explanatory notes up here in verse 36. And he said, and I think in the Septuagint it has Ve'amar Yehovah, and Yahweh said, and I think that's even repeated. I think in some part of the Qumran literature. But anyhow, it says, and he said, Elohemo. So where are their gods, the rock in whom they sought refuge? So remember rock. Remember, now this is their rock. You need to remember this is their rock. Zuram, you go back earlier here, verses 33 and previous, you're going to see Zuram, their rock, and this could also be referring here. This is referring to Israel, and so, but where is their rock that they took refuge in? Well, he's talking about Israel. Israel had another rock. They chose other gods, and so when you read here Zur or Zuram previously, you don't have to think internationally. You can think that this is domestically. Within Israel, there are idolaters. Okay, and this is definitely speaking about Israel's idolatry. Where are their gods? The rock in whom they trusted, who ate. So these are the gods who ate what? The fat of their sacrifices, and they drank the wine of their libations. And then Yahweh says, "Let them arise, and let them help you, and may it be a hiding place. May it provide a hiding place for you, a sitra." Okay, so Yahweh is mocking them, and showing them that their gods are futile, that they took refuge in, and that ate the fat of their sacrifices, and these gods who drank the wine of their libations. And they were, and Yahweh mocks them. Let them arise and let them help you, and let them be a hiding place for you. And then verse 39 here, then, see now. So now remember, now we have a tri-stick here. Okay, this here, we have two tri-sticks here in verse 39. See now that I am He, and there is no God besides me. I kill and make alive. I smite through and I heal. And there is no one who can deliver from my hand. So this is Yahweh mocking them and their gods, and that they can't come to help. Why? Because Yahweh's judging them. And Yahweh has the power. If your God can't kill and make alive, well, then He's not. This is just these are demons that you're worshiping. The true God is the God who can both kill and make alive, and who can both smite through and heal. And definitely there is no one who can deliver from His hand. So these two here represent two tri-sticks. And that's important. And I don't think that most of your translations offer that. But when you look at the Hebrew, you can't have a 6-3 construction. That's just not proper. So we break it down in here into a 2-4-3. And here we have a 3-3-3 construction here. And at the end of verse 39. So this is important for us to note, and definitely, as far as the Aleppo Codex, they don't, they're only looking at die sticks, and so by chance they do happen to have a couple of these lines that synchronize, but remember it's part of a tri-stick, and then it goes back into the way he was going before. But there's something else here that we need to look at in this text, and we'll be looking here at verse 36 and 34, because this is alluded to in the book of Hebrews. Okay, so now coming here then to the book of Hebrews, we have the author here quoting from our particular passage, and he does so down here in verse 30. Oidamingar ton epanta, for we know the one who said, Emoi ekdikesis ego anta padoso. Okay, vengeance belongs to me. I shall repay, says the Lord, and again, the Lord shall judge his people. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. So here we have, the author here quoting, from verse 34 and then from verse 35, and we should note the context in which this is situated. Now remember that Hebrews has like 5 different warning passages, this is definitely not friendly territory for somebody who adheres to once saved always saved, or a Calvinistic theology. That will be dispensed with real quick, like. So we'll read here from verse 10:26 following to get the Paul's or this author's particular Calva Omer argument here that he presents. For if we willingly keep sinning after receiving the knowledge of the truth, there no longer is left a sacrifice concerning sins, but a certain expectation of judgment and fiery jealousy, which is about to consume those who oppose. Anyone who had set aside the law of Moses shall die without mercy upon 2 or 3 witnesses. How much worse punishment do you suppose he shall be worthy of who has trampled down the Son of God, and the blood of the covenant he has regarded as defiled, by which he was sanctified? So this is he was sanctified by this blood. So we know we're talking about a Christian here, and has insulted the Spirit of grace. For we know the one who said, "Vengeance belongs to me; I shall repay," says the Lord. And again, the Lord shall judge his people. And this is really, and this author, he knows the one who said, he will judge his people. That's the correct, way of translating Dean here, Yadin here, from the Hebrew text. For it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of a living God. So this is a Calva Omer argument, basing, it's, that, if in the Old Testament one was put to death on the basis of 2 or 3 witnesses, he would die, without mercy. But now the ante is upped, because in the new covenant we have a better sacrifice. So with the better sacrifice comes a more severe punishment upon those who apostatize. How much worse punishment do you suppose he shall be considered worthy of who has trampled under the Son of God, and has regarded the blood of the covenant common? It's like pig's blood, by which he was sanctified, and has insulted the Spirit of grace. So this is talking about a Christian, and it all starts off here with the base clause, for if we continue sinning after receiving the knowledge of the truth. It's just, you're a kook, and you're lying to yourself if you don't understand that the book of Hebrews, the author does not subscribe to your once saved, always saved garbage, and even more so your Calvinism. Okay, now coming in here for a landing here. Now, the last strophe of these series of developing the judgment of both Israel's enemies and the domestic enemies of within Israel. we have here in verses 40 to 42 that Yahweh is taking up an oath. It's just like an oath formula here in verse 40. For I lift up my hand to heaven, and I say, as I live forever. So this is an oath that Yahweh's taking. And then we have this hypothetical situation. It's like in if-then construction. If I sharpen my glittering sword, and my hand takes hold on judgment, then I shall return vengeance to my foes, and to those who hate me I shall repay. So you can see here that this is chiastically constructed here. So you begin with the verb here, ashiv. You end with the verb here, and then you have vengeance to my enemies, and then vengeance to those who hate me here. So you palindromatically carry over the thought of vengeance here to line B, and so it's chiastically constructed, and then we continue on if Yahweh's hand does take hold on judgment, then certain things are going to happen. Yahweh is going to bring retribution upon his foes and upon those who hate him. And then he says, I shall cause my arrows to be drunk from their blood, and my sword shall devour flesh, from the blood of the slain and captive, from the head of the leaders of the enemy. Or you can say here from Merosh Parot, from the head of the long hairs, i.e. the enemy. That is here another, Parot here, we refer to the long locks of hair. Or, as when we look at the song, I think it's of Deborah here, that this could refer also to leaders. There's a, scholars are kind of somewhat split, and some say that the long hairs represent the leaders. Okay, and then we have the concluding in the Masoretic text, which is very much, we're going to expand upon this, but it ends here. So this is the conclusion, the biographical conclusion to the Song of Moses. And it's a call to join in with Israel to shout praise to God, and for the deliverance of his people. And it says this: shout, O nations, with his people, for the blood of his servants he shall avenge. He shall return vengeance to his enemies, and he shall make atonement for the land of his people. Now, there is, this is just, what the Masoretic text has offered us. But you're going to see probably some of your, translations are going to then add on to this. And say that, from the Septuagint and from Qumran we have a longer text. And we'll look at that next. Okay, so when we come here to the Septuagint, you can see that verse 43 is quite a bit longer than what you have in your Masoretic text. Rejoice, O heavens, with him, and let all of the sons of God worship him. Be glad, O nations, with his people, and let all of the angels of God be strengthened by him, because the blood of his sons he shall avenge. He shall avenge and render punishment to the enemies, and to those who hate he shall offer recompense, and he shall the Lord shall thoroughly cleanse or clean out the land of his people. So you could see here that there is quite a bit more here, going on here in the Septuagint. And so scholars have long noted that probably verse 43 in the Masoretic text does need to, needs to be expanded based upon the witness of the Septuagint. But when Qumran came along, it also had lengthened the reading. It's missing a line. The Septuagint will have one more distick to add, but the Hebrew text will be pretty much following the Hebrew text that we'll look at next. And I offer here that I just accept. These are the three readings of the text that God's left to us, and I would take all three into consideration, and I wouldn't throw out any of them. This is what God gave us. I'm keeping everything that He's given to us, and that we're being reasonable in our textual criticism of the text, and this is certainly a fair reading, and so I would say that we should keep all the readings. We wouldn't favor one over the other in this particular instance. Okay, then coming here then to the Qumran fragment, we have Haazinu Shemayim. And we'll read this as Amo, along with the Masoretic text, or if we were following the Septuagint, Imo. V'hishtachavu lo kol Elohim, ki dam banav yekom, v'nakam yashiv litzarav, v'lim shan av yishalem. And then we're going to have V'kiper admato amo, and so that's going to be the reading of this text, and it just simply says, "Shout, O heavens, with him," or with his people. Either way, we read amo if it's either amo or imo. And worship him, all gods. So you can see here, Kol Elohim, all gods. For the blood of his sons he shall avenge, and vengeance he will return to his foes, and to those who hate him, V'lim shan av Yishalem, he shall repay. And then V'kiper, and he shall make atonement for the Admat To, for the land of his, or for the Admat for the land of his people. So this would be our translation here, and note here that you guys, I don't know if you know this, but I did a whole series of lectures on the whole book of Hebrews, and in the first chapter, we may have the author of the book of Hebrews he did make a reference here to the longer reading here. So this is why when Hebrews here has an allusion to the longer reading here found in verse 43, well then this is why we should include this reading and have it just know that there's three readings for this particular verse. So it's a text critical verse, and it says in Hebrews, whenever he brings in the firstborn again into the world. Now this is this is translating Paul in literally. Okay, whenever he brings in the firstborn again into the world, he says, and let all of the angels of God worship him. Boom. So this here refers back here, here, V'hishtahavu lo kol Elohim, and worship him all gods. But as the Septuagint says, rejoice, O heavens, with him, and let all of the sons of God, all the sons of God, worship him. So this is the reading of Hebrews here. That would, that really agrees here with the Septuagint, and also this form here. Let all gods. That just means angels here. All gods worship him. And the Septuagint has let all the sons of God worship him. So then the author of Hebrews refers that God is saying let all the angels of heaven worship Christ. So this is definitely honoring Christ with divinity, and at the second coming. So this is going to take place at the second coming, when he's going to call for them to worship Christ the Savior. All right, this has been another session of biblical theology, exegesis, and hermeneutics, where meaning is definitely always context-driven. I'm your host, John Strazicich. Please like, share, and subscribe.